Talk Media Limited, where complex ideas are explained clearly. Hi, I'm TaxMax. Let's break down today's tax topic.
Fact: some taxes apply only to very specific industries, not to businesses in general. Residential Property Developer Tax, usually shortened to RPDT, is a UK tax that applies only to certain residential property developers. It is not a general business tax, and it does not replace corporation tax. Instead, it is an additional tax that sits alongside corporation tax and applies only to profits arising from residential property development activities. RPDT was introduced as a targeted measure linked to safety and remediation issues in the residential property sector. The policy aim was to impose an additional tax burden on developers generating profits from residential development, rather than spreading that burden across the wider economy. One of the most important points is this: a company within the scope of RPDT may still pay corporation tax on its profits, and also pay RPDT on certain residential development profits. So the same business activity can be subject to two separate taxes, operating under different rules. RPDT applies to companies, not individuals. It can apply to single companies carrying on residential property development activities, and also to groups of companies where one or more group members carry on those activities. The focus is not simply on owning residential property. The focus is whether the company is engaged in residential property development activities, such as developing land for residential use, constructing new residential buildings, converting existing buildings into residential use, or carrying out substantial adaptation works as part of a development project. RPDT does not apply to all residential development profits. As at September 2025, there is a group-wide annual allowance of £25 million. Only residential development profits above that allowance are potentially subject to RPDT. The allowance applies at group level, not per company. Groups must allocate the allowance between group members, and once it is fully used, further qualifying profits fall into the RPT charge. RPDT profits are not simply the same as corporation tax profits. Companies must calculate RPDT profits using a separate computation designed to isolate profits arising from residential development activity. This can be complex where groups carry on mixed activities. RPDT also operates at group level in several key respects. Residential development profits are aggregated across the group, and the charge is calculated by reference to the group position. This prevents groups fragmenting activities across multiple companies to multiply allowances. Losses from residential development activities follow RPDT-specific rules. They do not automatically mirror corporation tax loss rules. RPDT has its own administrative framework. Companies may need to notify HMRC and calculate and pay RPDT alongside their other corporate tax liabilities. The legislation also includes anti-avoidance rules. These are designed to counter arrangements with a main purpose of avoiding RPDT, including attempts to reclassify activities, shift profits, or manipulate group structures to bypass the allowance. RPDT does not apply to every activity connected with housing. Long-term investment ownership without development activity may fall outside scope, and non-residential activities are excluded. In summary, RPDT is a targeted tax aimed at larger residential property developers. It applies only to companies, operates alongside corporation tax, focuses on residential development profits, includes a group-wide £25 million allowance, as at September 2025, aggregates profits at group level, and contains specific anti-avoidance rules. And this brings us back to the fact we opened with. Some taxes apply only to very specific industries. RPDT is exactly that kind of tax. I tried explaining tax thresholds at a dinner party. Turns out everyone left before dessert.
Educational content only, not advice. Rules can change. Thanks for watching. Clear explanations, one place, Talk Media.